Welcome, everybody. This is the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode number 143, and I am your host, Osiris Prime. Tonight, I have with me two co hosts. We were supposed to have all four, but one had to drop out, unfortunately. So hopefully, maybe he'll come up next week. But I have Mr. SwissGuard. Swiss, how are you tonight?
Well, thanks.
Excellent. Mr. Agasicles Stamas. Agasicles, how are you?
I'm doing good. It's night. Like any other.
I suppose, yeah, that's true. Kind of all blends together nowadays.
Early Thursday.
It's almost Friday, yay. Doesn't have quite the same impact anymore, I don't think. But still, it's almost the weekend. Anyway, this is our deep dive episode. This is where we dive into our news stories from the past week or two-ish, kind of. I think most of these stories actually might have been from last week, maybe early this week. So first up, we are going to talk about the Xbox. Swiss's favorite subject. But I'm sure they'll have
It's
some
different. It's different for me now that they've unlocked kind of the PC side and are fusing them together.
Yes, that's true.
I don't feel so marginalized anymore when we have Xbox talk.
Yeah, you can actually talk with some of the games now that I guess they share most of the games from PC and console. So there's just some exclusives that kind of jump onto the PC. Unfortunately, like Age of Empires. I wish they would have put that on the Xbox. That would have been nice. But that's all right. Anyway, we're gonna talk about the Xbox Series X. We had some news this past week. Actually, I think last week, I believe. First up, Xbox 2020. And this is from Xbox's Newswire or Xbox Wire. So they're basically what they're talking about in this article is they're kind of road mapping what they have lying ahead as far as how they're gonna kind of bring out the news for this coming year, or I guess half a year. Since obviously we have no E3, we have no, and pretty much I think all of the conferences now are canceled for the year and foreseeable future. They're gonna do something kind of throughout the summer and actually I guess up into the fall, up until launch of the Xbox Series X machine. So they started off actually on May 7th with Inside Xbox, which is their kind of like quarterly show that they do. And they were showing off a bunch of third-party games that were coming out for the Xbox Series X. Now, I'm going to go through some of these games. Actually, I'm going to go through all these games really quick, just kind of shoot out like what they were showing off. So they showed off. I actually start from what they showed last. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. We finally saw gameplay stuff on this Viking-themed Assassin's Creed for this coming year. We have actually what they started off with, Bright Memory Infinite. It's kind of looked like a first-person shooter, but kind of looked like, I almost thought it was like a more actiony. I forgot, what was the Bethesda game with kind of the stealth action stuff? You guys remember?
Are you talking about Wolfenstein?
No, it was Dishonored. That's what it was. So I thought it was almost that at first, but then because there was kind of like sneaking around and stuff at the beginning of the trailer and parts of the trailer, but then they were doing like all kind of crazy like parkour stuff, and they had like some kind of like energy whip thing that he was like hooking people with and bringing them toward him or her. I don't know if it's a man or a woman. I don't know if they said that. So we got that going.
It sounded like the protagonist was a woman based off the voice.
Yeah, that's
at the end.
Oh, okay. We have Call of the Sea, which is from publisher Raw Fury. I'm not sure. I don't know what else they've done. First-person puzzle adventure game. Corvus, from Deep Silver.
So how do you know that? Because the note that I took down was, I don't know what Call of the Sea is.
I'm reading from this article. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right, got it.
Sorry, I forgot to tell you guys before we started. There was another article I threw in there real quick from Games Radar that kind of like broke out each game a little bit better than the first article I had. So that's what it says: first-person puzzle adventure.
But that's my first critique. Much like making a movie, show me, don't tell me. Don't have like a trailer that doesn't message to me like what's going on or what the game is, and then expect me to crawl around on the internet to find out like what it is. The only thing I saw from the trailer was I saw, first of all, at first I was like, haven't we done this before? Haven't we played, like, is this not, like, I seriously thought it was the same indie game from the EA Small Studios effort with the, is it a German woman who's in charge of that studio? But the one that came out a couple years ago during the EA that was like about like mental health and like
Yeah, the depression one. It was like
yeah,
there were like monsters.
right,
Yeah. I think I know what you're talking about.
yeah,
Yeah, I got a little bit of vibes from that, but that particular the Call of the Sea game one didn't actually annoy me. There's I will circle back to your comment in a second, but
Yeah, I was gonna say, hold on a second. Let me
Yeah.
get through the games first.
but
Let's stop right there.
that one looked like it reminded me of like a Myst, and I think based on what I've seen, it's like that kind of puzzle, kind of world exploration thing.
Walking simulator, as people like to say, just kind of figuring out puzzles and not really like combat or anything. I didn't really see any combat in there, so I don't know if there is or not, but who knows? We got Chorus from Deep Silver, space shooter thingy, I guess. I don't know what that was. Dirt 5, which I think Agasicles is probably excited about. He likes the racers and the Dirt series. Madden NFL 21. Scarlet Nexus, which is actually one that I was actually thought was kind of cool. Just kind of an anime third-person actiony. I don't even know, fighting these weird like demon, alien, plant head creatures. I don't know.
We're gonna come back and talk about the games, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll come back real quick. I'm just kind of doing like short
right.
blurbs real quick. Scorn, that was pretty much I think just like a CGI trailer. I think kind of what's the alien? The one the artist that the Aliens movies took their cue from.
Yes, I thought it was
HR.
I thought it was a commercial or a trailer for that part of the Alien franchise, which I refuse to acknowledge as canon. But whichever one whichever one was the reboot or the prequel or whatever.
Prometheus.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot what the second movie was. Yeah, we got Second Extinction. Excuse me. Fighting dinosaurs. This was one of the few that actually I didn't get to see all that much of. But I guess it's like synthetic dinosaurs or robot dinosaur or something with dinosaurs in them. The Ascent.
Again, I thought that one was Turok. the dinosaur game.
Rebooted. Turok Dinosaur Hunter. Oh, sure. We got The Ascent. Kind of cyberpunky RPG shooter world, which is I guess kind of in that right now. The Medium, which I think a lot of people were kind of like praising, or from what they saw, I suppose. Which actually kind of looked kind of cool, even though it looks like it's kind of maybe more of like a psychological thriller, more than just like jump scare or gore kind of a thing. Maybe a little bit of disturbing imagery in there, but nothing like super nasty or anything. At least so far.
It looked cool, but it looks like a game that I'm not going to play. Like, might be a little too much for me with the lights off.
Yeah, play it during the day. That's fine. We got Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 trailer, which I believe, if I remember, was pretty much CG, I thought. Let me see real quick. Oh, no, I guess they did show some gameplay in that one. I thought they did. And then finally, we have a Yakuza Like a Dragon, which I haven't gotten too far into the Yakuza 0 that I've been playing currently. But I don't remember them having like power-ups and stuff, because like the guy's hand was like glowing and his feet were glowing and stuff like that in the trailer. So, and actually I think that one they showed gameplay in too. So I just thought that was kind of weird. I don't know. I'm not even sure how many Yakuza games there are. So I'm not sure where this falls in a numbering or if it's kind of like a side story. So, but that one looked interesting for me too, because I'm starting to play those games. All right, so that was it. And then, like, once again, I said Assassin's Creed was actually at the end, and I think they actually talked to like the developer and stuff in that one a little bit more, and kind of like the people making the game. So that part I missed. I was kind of busy with other things. So, so the gentlemen, overall, what did you think of the showcase there for our first viewing of Xbox Series X games?
I appreciated that it was game heavy through most of it. I skipped kind of the end when they had a lot of people talking about stuff. That's when I tend to tune out. So I like that it was, but to jump on Agasicles' point from earlier, like some of the stuff showed gameplay and some of it was just like FMV. And if it's supposed to be like, hey, check out what Xbox Series X can do, it's like kind of more into the gameplay. But I mean, game developers have been doing this for marketing purposes for time immemorial, so it's kind of par for the course.
So I will say specifically. So even when it was a cut scene or a transition scene or whatever, every video that was shown in the showcase and an opening statement was made that every clip that you saw featured in-engine footage.
Right.
Now the caveat to that, and I think it's what everybody's all stirred up about, which is kind of pointless. Again, I've talked a lot this week about people getting all sensationalist and foolish about things that they don't understand and they don't do for a living. So, so every trailer supposedly, as far as I could tell, again, opening statement, umbrella statement for everything that was shown, and every video had the bumper sticker on there that everything was in-game footage. The caveat that I think maybe everybody doesn't understand, but the caveat was that in that bumper sticker it said that the game and the console were under development, and so it is likely to change or subject to change. All that means is that the hardware is not complete yet, and the game isn't complete yet. So what you see, maybe what you see in an endgame might be slightly different than what you see in the trailer. Now, there have been historical events where there has been a huge swerve that has caused people to get really aggravated, and I would say appropriately so. So, CD Projekt Red has had problems in the past with showing games that look very lusciously detailed and then back off from that in the final release. Having to back off on it somewhat doesn't surprise me. Throwing people for a big loop without telegraphing that up front is sometimes problematic. Again, I think unfortunately the degree to which people get up in arms about things being a delta and acting as if it's new or something that hasn't been done before is exacerbated this year while everybody's in isolation.
Yeah, and that was going to be one of my points. Sorry, Swiss, just real quick. That was going to be the big controversy, this past week, and everybody was just kind of poo-pooing, for lack of a better term, on the showcase itself. And I don't know. It's like, okay, yeah, it kind of stinks when they don't show any gameplay itself. But I mean, I get maybe it's just because we're kind of we live games basically. We're always, checking out the news and stuff like that. So, I mean, we probably kind of figured like, all right, this is the first lick for everything. So, it's probably not gonna be the best, but I mean, I didn't see it as a big deal. So sorry, go ahead.
And that's just one thing before Swiss. And that's not to say that's what you were saying, Swiss, or that's not to say you're that. I'm talking about everybody else who made like a really huge deal about like the whole theme and like central ethos of the 45-minute Inside Xbox segment, as if that was a really big deal.
Yeah, I understand. I was just going to say, like, gamers have been finding nits to pick for time immemorial as well. So, and when I say like I prefer gameplay versus like video, it's more just because I'm interested in seeing how the game plays, and I don't mind if they have a little bit of like a mood setting, but I don't know. It like the one that really bugged me was Scorn, because one, it looked gross, and two, it was just like I don't even know what genre is the game. Like, you don't even know. That type of thing kind of bothers me. The one that you referenced, Agasicles, the C one, at least like, yeah, it was like video based. They showed a little bit of gameplay footage, but at least I kind of got a sense of what the game was going to play like, what it was about. Just looking at some of my notes, I thought Chorus, I think that was probably my favorite one from the game, or from the show. The game's radar piece that Prime linked to called it Ace Combat Meets Control. I definitely got a vibe of Control, just like, I mean, the color palette and even kind of like the obelisk like architecture that they would have. But my thought when I was looking at it was Star Fox meets Control. So but it looks really cool, and I can see that game playing well on the PC. Uh, Prime, you mentioned Scarlet Nexus. I put meh in my notes. So I think I'll disagree with you there. But I think I'm not a huge fan of Bandai Namco RPGs. I think their big thing is Tales franchise, right? And I just never got into those. So, we'll see. If the same game had been pitched by like um, Bayonetta and Nier Automata, Platinum Games,
Platinum.
I'd have been so much more excited. But it's Bandai Namco, so I just felt like it was generic art JRPG fare. What else? I complained about Scorn already, and and the last note I had was Second Extinction does kind of appeal to me, but I had the same thought. I was like, is this a Turok game? And if they were making a game like this, why did they just try to like get a Turok like IP to go along with it? I don't know if it's a poison thing or if that was like something they couldn't do. Or I was curious if you guys thought it would be a positive or a negative to be affiliated with the Turok franchise.
And I need to. So I'm not sure if that's the one that they mentioned that's a squad-based game, right? They're like grabbers.
Yeah.
I need to
3-player co-op shooter. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to spend a few minutes to check my library. I think that game might be a sequel to a Left 4 Dead clone that came out on PC like last year that might be called Extinction. So there is a. It's not dinosaurs, so maybe it looked very reminiscent of the game. There was a 4-person squad-based co-op shooter where you are fighting like aliens or something like that, and it's exactly kind of the Left 4 Dead formula. It's like levels that aren't fully like strung together as a campaign, but they kind of make little vignettes and stories if you actually read in between the lines. And it felt like it was from that studio, but it might be completely separate. But I need to take a look at that. I have it on Steam, but I need to see if it's related at all.
So the other one was the Ascent. Was that the one? Yeah. So that's more of an isometric kind of a view when you're playing, or at least that's what it looks like. I'm assuming it stays that way all the time. So that was kind of interesting. I thought that looked kind of interesting. I mean, I'm not big on those kind of games, but I don't know. It looked kind of cool. They kind of lead off though with like this big cyberpunk city, and then they kind of go into the isometric view. So it's like I was kind of like and then I was like okay, but still looks kind of interesting. And then my other thought was, excuse me, they started with the Bright Memory Infinite, and at first I was like, oh okay, this is like their big kind of generic, just first person, running gun shooter. But then I started getting into it once they started showing like the parkour and the like that energy whip thing that she was using, and just kind of these other cool moves that they kind of showed throughout the trailer. So I was kind of interested in that one, see how that pans out more. So, and there's kind of a lot going on in that one too. So I don't know if that, how they do in trailers, they show the best bits. So hopefully that's not just like it just doesn't kind of stay with that. Like you're always just on like the whole game, hopefully they kind of slow it down and you can like do other things, and there's other tricks to the game itself. But I think we talked about Medium. So I think I've never played any of the Vampire games. I don't know, Masquerade. I don't know if either of you have. No. So I
played the very first one, which is Vampire Masquerade. So I think Bloodline, the first Bloodline. So the very first game was Vampire Masquerade. I think Bloodline was the complete game-oriented reboot of that game. It's actually I think there was a series of very small pen and paper RPGs that kind of came in like half-width booklets, so it builds upon that. I think that's, I mean, I know it's based on a pen and paper RPG. I think that was kind of its distinctive standout trademark look when it was on like a bookshelf. But the main thing is it's a very long-running RPG. It takes a lot of license on the vampire mythos, and Bloodline was the reboot. So Bloodline was a big reboot because Vampire the Masquerade was very broken when it first came out, like for 2 years, and then it was magically kind of made over, and a lot of those things were fixed and became one of the most amazing games ever. But by then, like it's a thing that people don't get back to. So people were very
Yeah.
pleased about Bloodlines, and I think that there's a small niche, uh, big following for that franchise. So people are happy to see it show up on next gen consoles.
Yeah, and then just two other quick things. The one was just kind of going back to the controversy of it just being mostly CG trailers. Although I mean, when I was kind of looking back through these trailers, I mean they do show a good amount of gameplay in them, even if it's just kind of like walking through this the the worlds itself. But so I think it was like the next day, maybe even a couple days later, Aaron Greenberg actually came back and was kind of apologetic about like the whole thing. So I don't know, like, was that just kind of like trying to get damage control? Obviously because everybody, it's the internet, unfortunately. I mean, did he have to really do that, or was it something he should have even done? Like, should he have just been like, all right, whatever, people are going to hate it because they're going to hate it. But he actually did come out, and try to apologize, saying, we were wrong, and that, not, I don't know if he said we were wrong, but I don't remember the exact quote, but basically, that, we kind of didn't show what was expected, I guess, is kind of what he was saying, which, I mean, you can expect all you want, I suppose, but I mean, I could expect, this thing is not going to be like $1 million, but it's probably going to, be up there in price. But I don't know. What did you guys think about that?
It's May before what traditionally would have been E3, so to me it's fine. Like I don't know what people were expecting. I think Judges Week would have already have happened by now. So the big, media circus of inviting people out to have them actually play through the games would have already appeared. So there'd be a lot more opinion out on the street right now, probably. I don't know if there was any type of virtualized Judges Week. I think Jeff Keighley is the one who arranges that, and I think when he stepped back from the E3 show in general, he just kind of went hands off with everything associated with it. So, so there was no Judges Week this week. So I don't know that the press has played those games, and has that there would have been about this time right after the Inside Xbox, there would have been a slew of articles from people who had actually had hands-on time with the games, and so that would have been coupled with your view of them from a trailer perspective, and that's what we would have had at this point in May before E3, with E3 being next month, right? We would have had the visuals of a lot of trailers and a bunch of people writing about the games who had actually played them, and I think in years past we would have been more generally satisfied with the reveal at this point, knowing that even more people would have hands-on with those games in E3. The real proof in the pudding. So essentially, what I'm saying is people are making the complaint that they would have made next month, like a month earlier, because by next month, people would have been bent out of shape about had any of those games shown up at E3 and been part of like the Xbox keynote, and then there not have been gameplay about some large percentage of them. That would have been an issue.
I guess I'm just so used to like Nintendo Directs. Like this format did not bother me. Like it's just a very Nintendo Direct kind of format. So I don't know. People complain about a lot of things.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I guess that part I didn't really think about that, but just kind of the presentation over, as a presentation was kind of weird, just because you see this guy in his house or his apartment, whatever, leading off the whole thing. I don't know if you guys got to see the whole thing or not, or if you just like kind of watch the trailers later on, but it's one of the.
I saw a bit of it.
Yeah, they had like, I can't even remember who it was. It wasn't Aaron Greenberg. It was somebody else that was kind of just part of Xbox, and he's just sitting there in his house, talking about stuff, and he kind of popped in and out every couple, a few times, and that was it. But it's just kind of weird. But
it wasn't as weird as a virtual conference that I went to for work, where the CEO of like a major player in the identity access management sphere says, we have a tradition where we all sing a song together at the end of the keynote, so I want everyone to sing with me. But he was on Zoom in like his living room by himself. I couldn't. It like was so painful. I turned it off. But I didn't turn. I wasn't pained when I was watching this Xbox event. So no, I don't think it was that big of a deal.
So there are bits and pieces of it overall that I was satisfied with, and bits and pieces of it that I wasn't. So a little bit about the overall strategy, right? If you talk about both the blog post conjoined with the presentation itself, one of the things that I think we're aware of, but maybe we haven't talked about on the show to make sure everybody else is aware of it, is, concurrent with this blog post was the news that came out that your access to Project xCloud and Xbox Game Pass are going to be conjoined. So as far as I understand it, it'll be, they're gonna bundle this somehow, where somehow your rate that you're paying, not to say that it won't go up, is going to give you access to both. So that may or may not mean things like, those of us who have Xbox Game Pass, that we will also be able to concurrently play anything on Xbox Game Pass in Project xCloud, which means a lot for continuity. Again, we're all staying at home now, but if the world returns to the normal and you go out and about, that means you can start a game on your PC at home or on your Xbox at home, and you can then, go travel to see grandma and then play that game, on your phone, and you can pick up your game save and yada, yada, yada. So I think that's a big deal. I think overall, the news of, it's kind of a, thing, because I think those of us who have followed Xbox are aware of this. This is what Microsoft does. They do this Rolling Thunder campaign where they deliberately select the bits and pieces that they're going to give you. They project at a very long range when they're going to drop those droplets, and it's part of a plan. And by the time you walk up to a certain point, you understand a greater part of the whole. So in the blog post, they kind of mention that a little more specifically, that they're going to call this Xbox 20x20, is what I call it, or 20/20, or 2020, however you want to call it. And all of the Inside Directs supposedly are going to be about games for the Xbox Series X from here on out. And I think they just talked about this one and the one next month, or in July? I guess next month. I guess they're going to be monthly or quarterly? Monthly.
They're gonna be monthly, yeah. So every month up until like once a month, they'll showcase something.
Right. So that's a big deal. I mean, you're going to get to see games for that new console, which still to date, right, is still talked about coming out this year, and I think that's a thing. So, and then what do they say in July? They're going to dedicate time to focus on the games coming from Xbox Game Studios.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big deal. Again, for a console manufacturer that owns like 15 game studios, dedicating it to them. And I'm just going to go ahead and vomit all this, so you guys jump in here and and interject when you want to. It was weird to me that they started off the showcase with a third-party title. I guess, did they show any first-party titles this go round, or it was all third parties that were shown this time around?
I'm not sure, but I mean, they definitely didn't show the one that everybody wants to know about, for Halo Infinite. So
right, and they didn't show Forza. So I think as I looked through my notes here, I think everything was third party. So that kind of caught me off guard. That the first big reveal was from a third party studio, and I don't know if we still have Prime or not. He looks frozen. Uh-oh, and now I've lost it. Are you still there, Swiss, or have I lost your audio?
it would help if I was unmuted when I said that. I am not. Prime looked frozen to me as well.
Okay, all right. He looks like he's coming back. Then you had Dirt 5, which this is where I start getting into like how I felt about the conference overall, and maybe it's a little unfair. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool gamer guy. There's a big part of me that's satisfied if, as each generation comes along, it's just better graphics, right? There's a part of me that's like, okay, fine, great, it's another racing game with better graphics this time around, yay, let's go. When you talk about the Series X and even the PlayStation 5 and all these things coming up, like, I didn't feel like I was shown anything that was transformative. And that's a little unfair, and I guess I give myself the out that, like I hear that every console generation, from, like, this is just the same game over, and I kind of poo-poo it. I don't say that often, but I feel like the promise of the Series X and the promise of the PlayStation 5, those things, we would want to come along. Now that all being said, it's a good thing Sony didn't try and do PSVR 2 this year, because that would be incredibly, like, I would feel bad for any console man. Like, I feel bad to a certain extent for Atari, right? Yapping about that they're going to do something transformative with their vaporware console that they keep saying is coming out. Like, this is a hard year to pull that off in. But Dirt 5 was the first time, like, I was like, this is, and maybe it's a Dirt 5 thing, but I was like, this is, it looks like Grid. It looks like an intermix of, like, Grid with Dirt, which was already there in Dirt 3, you know, enhanced edition with all the Hoonigan stuff, and I didn't feel like it was anything new. Now, what I haven't pulled the thread on is, my initial suspicion was that this was, Slightly Mad Studios, the Project Cars guys that they just bought at the tail end of last year, who were doing this iteration of Dirt, since this is not in the Dirt Rally franchise specifically. But I haven't pulled that thread. Same as you, I felt Chorus looked great. It looked like Descent on steroids in outer space. So, as you mentioned, I'm very happy to play that on PC. I'm hoping I'm right in that assumption that it'll line up on PC, because it's really hard to use a joystick on a console. It seems to always be a problem every generation. I was impressed that EA, I was surprised to not hear you guys talk about this before. I was impressed that EA, you know, was there in the press conference. They intend to be there day one. I know that they did their sizzle reel of, like, past iterations of Madden, but they showed this year's Madden as well, right? Actual gameplay footage. So
Fast-forwarded through Madden because I don't care. But it looked like at the end they did have Patrick Mahomes, you know, reaching over the pylon with football. So
gotcha. And the bigger thing is, mainly what I picked up in this conference was I was really on the lookout for all the business stuff. This is EA saying that they are on board with smart delivery of Madden, which probably means that they're going to do smart delivery for every franchise. The only one that I would really look out for is FIFA, since that is such a beast financially that they would be well within their rights to choose to not do smart delivery for FIFA and force you to pay for it, you know, more than once. But I was really impressed. They're the first, as far as I know, they're the first big third-party publisher that everybody looks to as far as, like, what are they going to do, because, you know, where EA goes, so go the dollars, you know, most of the time. So it was really impressive for me for them to be the first one to raise that flag and say we're doing smart delivery on Xbox for a franchise as big as Madden. It makes it really hard for somebody like Activision or Gearbox or 2K or whatever to not do smart delivery, because then you're going to be compared to this very large third-party publisher that people frequently vilify, and people in the story is going to be, but EA is doing smart delivery, so who are you to not do it? So that, to me, was a big deal. A lot of one of the things I picked up on, though, was I paused the big publisher splash screen where they talked about all the companies that were in. And did we know that Humble Bundle is getting on the publishing train at this point? Swiss, has that come across your PC radar? I mean, I think I've...
as a publisher,
Yeah.
not really. But I mean, I've done a little bit with Humble. I mean, I just actually picked up a bundle this week, but for the most part, I haven't really used them very much. So they're not as much of a thing for me, regardless.
Gotcha. I think they are going to become a publisher, so it was interesting to see them on board on the Series X launch. I assume we'll see, like, a bunch of indie-type games from them. I'll just chug through the rest of these kind of sizzle reel, like, really tough for anybody to do anything that is cyberpunk-looking in 2020, so good on you for those people doing the Ascent.
I feel like we had, like, the same reactions, because when I was watching it, I was like, why are you trying to do Cyberpunk when Cyberpunk's coming out? And then when they got to the isometric view, I was like, okay, at least it's a different genre. But that was my reaction as well.
It does look good. Again, very excited to see that game come to PC, if it comes to PC. Scarlet Nexus felt like a Devil May Cry or Bayonetta kind of clone-ish kind of thing, so we'll see where that goes. Weird to me to pick Yakuza to demo in the first thing, because Yakuza to me on Xbox is the nearest thing to when the PlayStation people have Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts. It is a certain kind of crazy, like, not a lot of people get it. It's a very fervent following. Like, you you can't be in that discussion circle unless you are a Yakuza player, right? Otherwise, you just need to be quiet and stay away, right, and not be in that discussion. So, because there's no tolerance in that realm for outside opinion. So, and then I watched a little bit of the Valhalla clip. I think it came across our news radar. Is the composer from Vikings, the show, the composer on Valhalla?
I believe so. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that was one of the stories out there. Yeah.
Because the music sounded very similar. I mean, overall, one of my big takeaways too from the thing was, and I think, I mean, to defend Scorn a little bit, I believe the Scorn developer was one of the developer vignettes at the end. So if you didn't watch that, you may not have heard them. But I don't disagree with you in that it was just like environmental palooza, right? It was just kind of walking through all their environments and having them show it to you. And it was part of that chunk of content that was shown in this that just showed that with great power, developers will make very gross things. So, but overall, my biggest concern was like I don't know if it was I don't think it was my display, but everything felt like a very brownish, grayish kind of game. Like there was not a lot of color pops to a lot of the games that were shown, and I don't know if there's something funky going on with like the HDR implementation, like in the dev kits or something, but like everything felt like very subdued colors. Dirt 5 looked like the colors when they did implement them and try and make them pop felt very saturated. It felt like I was looking at an OLED screen, even though I wasn't looking at an OLED screen, but there's something weird, funky going on with colors, and that's I felt like I saw that every single time a game came across. So I'm interested to see what the rest of the year holds. I don't overly fault Xbox because I don't know what else they could have done at this stage, but I don't know. I mean, they certainly didn't knock it out of the park like in the first direct. Like they certainly have follow-up work that they need to do to prove their case. And especially, in an environment where kind of unfortunately what they really need to do is win a certain number of PlayStation players over, right? I mean, is kind of the battle.
It just had my expectations weren't high. Like I view this as step one, and I know they announced like the Xbox 2020 stuff, but like I kind of felt like this was kind of starting to set the playing field, and we'd start to see like around the E3 time, like in June and July, we'd start to see them really hit with some major heavier stuff, and I guess that's what I got what I expected, so maybe that's why I'm not disappointed in it.
Yeah, it's just well, when you talk about you want to get people excited, you want to get people lathered up, that Rolling Thunder campaign. Again, if you're going to go with third-party publishers, again, very weird to not have like big heavy hitters from a franchise perspective. I mean, yes, they had Assassin's Creed in there. They had
Madden.
They had Madden. They had Dirt in there. I guess maybe to a certain extent, again, gamers have critiqued it in past years when we get sequelitis. But I feel like maybe this should have been a sequelitis show. I will say, there feels like there is an effort in this generation to do a launch that I will say is a lot more varied in the past. Like, this was also not Staple Palooza, so it was not a bunch of shooters and the driving games and the RPGs that are kind of, you talk about your 5 staples that are, your big killer whales in a launch year. This was not that. There were a lot of things that appear to be bringing a lot of very unique play styles. I'm looking for the safe bets, right, in a launch year because I don't know. I'll be interested. I would be interested in something a little more avant-garde once the console has proven that it is itself, by having a heavy helping of good staples on it, and I didn't get that feeling from this direct.
Right, but isn't like Halo Infinite, like isn't that what they're probably hanging their hat on for that?
Well, right, and that's what puts me like in a wait and see mode, right? Because if I were a PlayStation loyalist, this direct wouldn't have been the thing that brought me over, and maybe that's understood and that's the plan. Like I need to see what they're coming with next time around, next direct in June, or really the July one, which I guess will be all first party focused.
Yeah, and then it kind of begs the question, I guess, what they're going to do for June. I mean, are they going to just do more third party? Are they going to start talking about services maybe a little bit more. I mean, I think for June, if I remember correctly, and they don't mention it here, but I thought I read somewhere that they're actually part of the IGN Summer of Games thing that they're doing. IGN's doing, which is kind of like their, I guess, E3 equivalent. They're just going to have a bunch of people on, or different bunch of different games and developers and studios on, just showcasing their games. So I mean, I don't know what's to come in June for them before we get to July. Which should be the big show with all the first party stuff. So
I would actually prefer it. It would be fine for me if it were relatively the same games. If there were just deeper cuts, like more gameplay footage and more discussion. I know Swiss mentioned he doesn't like that. That's actually the thing. Like, to me, everybody does a trailer. Like that doesn't tell me a whole lot. Right? You do a trailer, that was done by like the dev or a tester who's gets paid for a living to like what I want to hear them talk about is kind of some of the deeper design nuances, and that's what those developer interviews do. So I would hope it would be more of that, in the vein of them explaining more of the gameplay that goes along with the game.
Yeah. So we'll see. I think the other big thing that they're touting, I don't know if you mentioned this. Sorry, I jumped out there for a second. I was having some issues. Was their the smart delivery, which I believe most of these games were. I think there was only like a few games that didn't have the smart delivery. I think Madden. Well, in that one article, they say Madden was one of them, but that might have been after or before the EA is kind of
it was definitely
talk about stuff.
It was definitely on the trailer. It was definitely we did talk about that a little bit probably while you were gone. That to me was like a very huge, probably the biggest item of news of the show.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and just the other two were Medium and Scorn, which, I mean, they might just be made for next gen. They might not have a current gen equivalent. So, I mean, or they just decided not to do that, which is up to the developer, according to Microsoft. So we'll see. Any last words on the Xbox Series X stuff? Xbox 2020. All right, let's jump on ahead then and go to some more games actually that were kind of announced or sort of announced. Swiss, I think you had these first couple articles at least. One talking about Prince of Persia possibly.
Yeah,
and Amazon's Crucible.
So Blues News posted, reported on a link from a Reddit poster that Ubisoft has registered Prince of Persia 6.com. So we're probably gonna see that at some point in some form or fashion. And I think the last Prince of Persia title I played was Prince of Persia on the PS2, but that they went I think they really kind of went in a weird direction with the series, right? They got a little bit more hardcore combat instead of the whole parkour thing. And I was just curious. I saw this and I was like, huh, Prince of Persia, that'd be neat if they came out with it. And then I got to thinking, I was like, are we going to see an Assassin's Creed Origins clone? Well, I guess it's all Ubisoft, but, they're go that, open world Ubisoft route, or hopefully, are we going to see more of a parkour type game? So, I don't know. Are you guys interested at all in that series?
So I would be. I'm a big, huge fan of the Prince of Persia series. I can't remember, DBQ would know this. I think the 2008-2009 Prince of Persia on PlayStation 3, that was the one game that was cell shaded and completely different from every other game in the series, where you were partnered with the magician or whatever, and she would jump in and you would do team attacks and things like that. So I had a ton of fun playing that game. Swiss, take a look at it in case I'm wrong. I followed the Blues link and then followed all the other links that talked about the Who Is directory sign up for that, and I was tracking down the path of this being tagged as a fake. So as I look at the Who Is directory information, I thought what I saw in there was a lot of somebody trying to claim the URL, but it not being released, and somebody who is not Ubisoft trying to make that URL a thing. So it looked like it was somebody trying to grab a URL and get people to go there.
I just took it at face value, so I did not do any verification.
You didn't do your due diligence. No, that's all right. That's all right.
I am with you. I would absolutely love a Prince of Persia game, especially if it arrived, on next-gen consoles, and then made its way onto PC. But I feel like this instance started to not look that way.
I thought Ubisoft too had mentioned that they had two. Maybe it was during the earning calls or something, or the last one, that they had two franchises that they were working on, but they didn't name them at the time. So I mean, it's possible.
You have the Ubisoft article queued up for later in the show, but they have announced that it had 5 AAA games set to launch between end of 2020 and beginning of 2021. But apparently, we don't really know what all 5 are yet.
They are, yeah.
I think the only one we don't know is one. I think we're missing one. So we know Watchdog Reservoir. Is it Reservoir?
Legion.
For some reason I think Reservoir Dogs. Watch Dogs Legion. Now we know it's Valhalla. I forget the other two.
We have Rainbow Six Quarantine in here.
That's
Oh
right.
yeah,
In the God and Monsters, and Monsters game.
Gods and Monsters. Yeah,
Yeah.
This article, I guess we're here now.
that's right. Yeah,
This article mentions Beyond Good and Evil 2 and Skull and Bones. But again, those were very... Skull and Bones, when they revealed it, it looked like it was farther along than all these delays have made it seem. Beyond Good and Evil 2 was pretty much like, they announced kind of like the community contribution stuff, and they had a lot of, backstory, like animation, but it seemed early in development. So I'm kind of curious where those two are actually starting to fall.
I suspect what is going on with Skull and Bones, and this is a little deep, so this may be a far leap. I suspect what's going on with Skull and Bones is it was built on the Assassin's Creed Black Flag ship combat engine, right? So by the time it was shown at E3, it was already like 2 years old. I suspect that last year, in the course of development, they decided to move to a new engine, and I think that is taking them a lot of time, as you would expect.
Yeah, and as far as Prince of Persia, I guess because that was it was just called Prince of Persia, the 2008 game. So I don't know if it was like supposed to be like a reboot or something. So you were correct. December 2nd, 2008.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't think I ever really played. I might have played like some demos myself of Prince of Persia games, but I mean, kind of like what Sos is saying. Like I don't know. Like I mean, it would kind of be a little bit too Assassin's Creedy, I would assume. If I'm assuming they make it open world. I mean, who knows? I mean, most games are nowadays, so you would think they would do that with that one too, or if they're just maybe a linear game. So maybe
I guess that was my thing. It's just like I saw it and then I was like, if they probably want to make it open world, then I was like, we've seen that. And then I was a little bit sad. I was like, I'd like to see a Prince of Persia game, and I don't want to just see it lost because it looks like a rehash.
I think, I mean, having recently replayed that 2008 game, I feel like the Prince of Persia series is a little more Metroidvania than the Assassin's Creed series. So I mean, even if it's open world, I mean, if they kept with the design ethos, I feel like it's much more so in the platformery vein. I don't think of Assassin's Creed as a platformer. I think of the jumps as like actiony. Like I don't expect to go into a temple and be given like I got to make 59 like super precise jumps and like I'm playing that scene over and over and over again. Whereas that is definitely Prince of Persia. So my guess would be they would keep it. I don't know, to differentiate
grounded?
it. Yeah,
maybe.
They would,
yeah.
Well, not necessarily grounded, but they would actually more fantastical. They would keep it in that vein in order to differentiate it from Assassin's Creed. But I don't know. It is Ubisoft. A lot of their games. I love their games. A lot of them are like the same. Just like they just feel like a palette swap of skins.
Yeah. Well, when I say grounded, I mean maybe not so fantastical. You're saying more fantastical, but I'm saying maybe not so fantastical as far as when you're playing Assassin's Creed, you can like parkour over everything and anything and like whatever you want, and you normally, I think you can fall off and die and get killed, but normally you're not going to. It's pretty rare. So maybe Prince of Persia, they can ground it a little bit more. Okay, if you fall from like even just like a 2-story building, you're gonna get hurt at the very least. Lose energy or something. So I don't know.
Puzzly is the word I think I would say. Prince of Persia is much more puzzly than Assassin's Creed, and I would expect that to maintain.
Yeah. All right. So next one was Amazon's Crucible, free-to-play multiplayer game. Looks like it has a launch date. Swiss.
Yep,
I'm sorry,
the 20th. So we got one more week until we can play it, and it's free to play. So looks like it's releasing on Steam, and at the very least, and I think it's going for consoles, but I'm not sure. I saw the Steam logo, and that's all I really cared about. Yeah. So I watched the trailer, and like at first, I know this is in the background, but I really don't feel like there's been a lot of hype built up. Like I haven't been hearing a lot of a drum beat. I haven't noticed a lot of a drum beat, and I was trying to kind of figure out, what the lineage of the game dev team was. Like, what did they do in the past that like where I can kind of root my thoughts on Crucible, but I really didn't see anything. Like it's really actually hard to find information about them. On their website, like on their that they mentioned like we have people from League of Legends, Half-Life 2, Left 4 Dead, Portal, Thief, System Shock 2, Age of Empires, Dawn of War 2, Halo, Last of Us. I mean, it's like a mishmash. So they seem to have pulled people together from a lot of different places, and they only released one other like game that I've never heard of before. That particular team. So it's kind of one of those things where when you see a game like this that, I mean, I guess Amazon really wants this to be a hit. I mean, they want it to be maybe a Twitch flagship. So, but when you see stuff like that doesn't have a strong lineage, how do you feel about it? Are you guys like, is it on your radar, or are you kind of just going to wait to see if it becomes a thing before you even take a look at it?
I mean, I'm definitely looking at it with side eye, but my feeling is this thing is like Star Wars, and Amazon doesn't need to advertise. Like, I almost feel like I can almost guarantee you that anyone who is a Twitch partner is going to have no choice but to play this game. Right? I am certain.
Right.
I mean, will either have no choice and/or plus is going to be paid to play this game. So on launch day, lots of big Twitch streamers will be playing this game and will swear that it's the best thing since sliced bread, like LeBron James wearing a pair of Jordans, right? Like, I mean, it's just they've got. And my guess is it was actually developed with a lot of those people play testing it as well. So I'm very interested to see what the marketing and business and advertising campaign is going to be behind this at launch day. Have you seen any indication that it's coming out like early access or anything like that, or is it just launch?
Looks to me like it's just launch. There was some, like, honestly, like when I watched the trailer and I kind of saw what they did, the first mode that they showed was actually a PvE mode, which was something that I found like that interests me more. It was like a PvE, but like a race where I guess two teams are competing against the environment. And that reminds me a lot of like Gambit and Destiny 2. So that actually got me a little bit intrigued. So it definitely doesn't feel as like Apex Legendy, where you're like it's all about going after other people. They have a little bit more. A little bit more, you're working within the environment type vibe. So that for me, that is actually a positive, and I'm kind of curious to see how it'll go. But it feels like an enigma to me, and maybe I just haven't been paying enough attention. But
Now,
that
I feel like,
and the other one they have, New World.
yeah, I feel like this will be the last week that we will not be able to be exposed to news, advertising, and marketing about Crucible. I think we'll get deluged next week.
They just
And,
get blasted.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially for those who hang out around like the streaming scene, like it'll be worse than Valorant.
Valorant's still going strong. We're still seeing news reports now. They hit their big numbers, I think, or something this week, or I think at the end of last week or whatever. One of the articles we had out there. Yeah, I don't think I heard really much about this until you put the article up there. So, and just kind of reading the article, yeah, it looks like they're kind of trying to dip their toes in a little bit of everything. Like you said, they have the PvE mode, they have the second mode, which is kind of almost like a battle royal mode, which is it only has 8 teams of 2, so it's not like it's not like 100 people or anything, but still, it's the last team standing. And then like a Dota or League of Legends type of mode, which is their last mode. So I don't know. I mean, if it ever comes to the consoles, if it's free to play on there, I'll probably try it out. Test it out.
Well, that's to me is the most significant thing around it is as you look around the landscape, right? What I feel like I see, when you look at Valorant and you look at Crucible, is the beginnings of this upheaval of everything not being a battle royale, right? So I'm very curious to see if the battle royale thing has peaked in apogee and people it started feeling like last year people were getting the understanding that like you don't develop a battle royale game, right? Like unless you're going to put millions of dollars behind it, like there's no point in doing it because the companies that are going to put millions behind it are just going to own that landscape, and there's only but so much room for 2 or 3 to be at the top. I started feeling like developing, like you look at the number of battle royales at E3 2018 and the number of battle royales at E3 2019, a huge, like it felt like everybody and their mother was doing battle royales in 2018, and in 2019 there was a sharp drop off. I'm wondering if we're starting to see the swerve now towards people differentiating their game by specifically saying that it is not a battle royale.
Yeah, it's gonna just become a game mode, which I think what everybody thought it was in the first place, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I thought there was something else I was going to mention in this article, but I forgot now. But that's all right.
It does say that it's only launching on PC on May 20th. So
yeah,
I'm not sure
yeah,
about.
It's just PC
consoles.
for now. So all right. I was going to say something, but I'll keep it for later. I'll keep it for another time. Let's go to the next news story. Disintegration, a new shooter from co-creator of Halo. I think Agasicles, did you put this one up? Or was that you too, Swiss?
I think I put this one up as well. Just because it caught my eye that somebody from Bungie, is working on a futuristic sci-fi shooter. So, and I'm a big Destiny 2 fan. So I took a look, but this one's a little bit different. It's like a shooter RTS type game, and the story looks like sci-fi type story, but they have these grav cycle things where you're kind of on like this floating hover carrier type thing with lots of rockets and guns on it, but I watched a little bit of, I guess it was the Game Informer crew playing the beta, and I didn't get a good sense of, how they were actually controlling their units, on the ground. It looked a little confusing to me, but...
I think, it'll be interesting to see. I think I got the impression that there are 2 different things. That you do... kind of like if you've ever played Brother in Arms, or I can't remember the Activision game that is that's all built around heroes or whatever. But essentially you do the army commanding thing in single player mode, but in multiplayer mode it's all like the normal kind of PvP stuff.
Okay, I gotcha. I didn't really watch that much of it. It kind of just came across and I threw it in there. So I didn't know if anyone else was. If it was on anyone else's radar. I'm not really sure if I've even heard of V1 Interactive, which is his company. I guess I could really quick check and see what else they've done. But have you either? So you said Brothers in Arms is a shooter and RTS elements. Like, what other games have you played in that kind of genre mashup?
I mean, Brothers in Arms is the one that leaps out. There's like 4 games, I think, in that franchise, maybe 3. Again, there's another game, I can't remember the name of it. It came out like in the early 2000s when RTSs were still a big thing. And it came out like in the era with like Rise of Nations and when Empire Earth was a big thing, and it's something and something, and I want to say it was from one of the one like Civilization 3 was made by, I think, published by like Active. It was like a one-off where it was given to like a different development studio than Firaxis, and I think that same dev studio did this game, but it's something where like your hero characters would be like Alexandria and Cleopatra and something like that, and you could pull out and be like the RTS commander type, but then you could zoom in and take personal control of like one of these hero units, and fight the battle from third person view. I think. I'm pretty sure I'll be able to find it, but that's the only. I don't know that. I guess, well, there's also, it's a weird thing. There's also not many people. Hostile Waters and TS Rising was another game where you weren't given like a whole army, but you would be given like 3, 4, 5, or 6 units, and you would command all of them, but you could also go in and directly control one of them. But they're not. I don't know that I would say that they've been like hugely successful. So I think they don't get made that frequently.
Was it Dark Rain? I know that's on RTS, but I don't know if you can control the one you're talking about. I know it was developed by Pandemic and published by Activision back in 2000.
I don't think
That was the second one. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just kind of looking real quick.
I'll try and find it.
Okay. I had heard about this game before. I didn't realize what it was. I just heard, it kind of caught my eye just because it was, a former Bungie person, kind of just like like when you saw it. But I didn't realize it was that kind of hybrid type of game, which is kind of cool. I guess, I think this is coming out for everything, right? Yeah. PlayStation 4, Xbox, PC. So might be something to look out for. Maybe it'll come to Game Pass. Who knows? Hopefully. They don't mention that in this article at least, but so I'm assuming probably not. But eventually, maybe it'll come out to Game Pass. I'm trying to think. There was another game that I was thinking of where you could do that. I think it was actually a Nintendo game. I can't remember what it was though now. So, but and that's coming out. Was it June 20th? June 16th. So for, like I said, PC, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. So we'll see. We'll see when it comes out. So let's go into, and we actually talked about this a little bit. So obviously we had the Xbox doing their insider inside Xbox, talking about games coming up. We've had PlayStation actually just had a direct-ish thing where it's just Ghost of Tsushima, excuse me. But we also have a couple other companies that have actually announced stuff they're doing this summer to get their games out there, coming out for the next half a year or so, like E3 used to. So June 11th we have EA Play Showcase, which is going to start at 4 p.m. Pacific, and they're going to obviously just going to do their, which is kind of what they did before when they kind of separated from E3. They're just going to showcase their games. And I guess because when you mentioned it before, I wasn't even thinking, when they showed Madden during the Xbox, I was like, oh yeah, that's EA. Why are they there? But I didn't even think about that at the time until you mentioned it. But yeah, I guess that's kind of a big deal that they did that. But I'm sure, we'll get the whole, obviously you just got a glimpse there, but we'll get the whole in-depth on Madden, most likely, and, FIFA and all these other games coming out. There's no Battlefield this year, so I don't know what they're going to show off as far as like their kind of shooter, and I don't think there's a Battlefront of any type coming out, not that I've heard of at least. So it's going to be interesting to see like what else they show, they show out there. We had Need for Speed obviously came out last year, so I don't know if they're going to even attempt to put another one out this year or not, but we'll have to see. Any thoughts or predictions on what else they might show?
I'm wondering if we'll get anything Star Wars related this year, like another surprise announcement or Respawn. I mean, I think I would one guess would be we would hear something about like a DLC or an expansion pack or something to do with. I keep wanting to say the Force Unleashed, but their Star Wars game from last year, I would guess.
Fallen Order.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. They mentioned that in there too. So there's something called Project Maverick, which they think is a Star Wars game, maybe. But I mean, who knows what it is?
Are they still putting stuff out for Battlefront 2, Star Wars Battlefront 2? Because like I'm wondering how much have they really done anything with like the Disney Plus tie-ins yet for that?
I thought what I was reading earlier in the last couple of weeks was that this like the recently released DLC is the last thing for Battlefront 2.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, that's what they said that was it. I think they're just kind of in like maintenance mode after that's coming out. I think that was from Rogue One, I believe. They were doing one of the maps from that movie, I think. Or one of the expansion movies, I believe, that last piece of DLC was going to come out. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, they have the Star Wars license till 2022, I believe, EA, I think. So I mean, they could still get at least one more game out there from Star Wars. So, and I'm sure that they have their kind of smaller indie titles that they always do too, like what was the one with Yarny? I can't remember now. Unraveled and Faye or Fe, however you pronounce that one. So I'm sure they'll showcase some smaller indie stuff. And then along with EA, of course, we had, I think actually just like a day or two after that, like we mentioned earlier, we had Ubisoft's doing their Ubisoft Forward, which is going to be July 12th. And I don't think they had any times on that one yet. But obviously we saw Assassin's Creed. We'll probably see maybe more from Rainbow Six. Hopefully God of Monsters, because that actually kind of looked interesting to me, at least. Watchdog Legions, which obviously they've delayed. So hopefully we'll see more on that, along obviously with some new stuff coming out. I don't know. Well, like you said, I think we only had like the one game that I think we don't know about. So that I guess there's at least one mystery. And of course, we'll have our fan favorites. Just Dance, I'm sure, is going to lead off the the show like it usually does. Or maybe they're just slapping in the middle with some like dance routine, which is going to be kind of weird on a video, I guess, presentation. But we'll have to see.
Has Splinter Cell been? I've heard rumblings about Splinter Cell. Has it all just been like speculation, or has there been a little bit of concrete breadcrumbs, so to speak, that might be coming?
Yes, as far as I've seen, it's just been like speculation. I haven't seen anything concrete, at least not that I've seen. So we'll have to see on that one. I know that's another big one that I know like pretty much every year people are asking for that one. So we'll have to see. I thought there was a rumor. Maybe there was something about like kind of like the Prince of Persia, where it's like some kind of website or maybe like a job posting or something somewhere that people were thinking it had to do with Splinter Cell, but I don't think there's anything like super concrete on that one either.
Curious if they're gonna do like another Rabbids or like Rayman. I know those aren't like super hardcore games, but like I don't feel like those are kind of they've released like Rayman Legends on like every platform under the sun for the last half decade, it feels like. So
yeah,
I'm wondering if when that series is going to get like a refresh. And I thought I heard that there was like a Rabbids game, but maybe I'm getting it mixed up with like another, like what was the PlayStation one with the monkeys, like a long time, like the Monkey Escape or something like that.
Ape Escape? I think there was one called Ape Escape, I think.
Maybe I'm getting it like confused with that. I thought I'd seen something that there was another one of those games coming out.
Yeah, I thought they were bringing out a cartoon or something. Maybe that's what you're thinking of for the Rabbids. So
I know they did that. That's on Netflix because
so that's out already.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know that was out already.
That's what I'm asking about. I'm like, they have a Rabbids TV show, but no new Rabbids games.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Well, like the old Rabbit games, weren't they more like kind of party games, or did they actually have like a story to them? I don't know if you ever played any of them.
I haven't played them.
Because I remember they kind of popped up on the Wii like originally, and I always thought they were like kind of like party, just kind of like mini game stuff.
Yeah, my first real gaming exposure to them was Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
Yeah, and I think that was the last one, right? The last game that they were in, at least. So,
Unless you
yeah.
count Rabbids coding.
Oh, I didn't even know about that.
It's like an educational game.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're not gonna count that. um, yeah. So I haven't, as far as those two, EA and Ubisoft, I haven't really heard of anybody else like concrete having like a showcase or a direct or anything like that. Like I mentioned before, I know IGN's doing their summer showcase coming next month, so I'm assuming maybe like probably a lot of smaller companies and maybe even just companies that usually don't have a direct, like Activision never usually had one. We had their, well, I was gonna say there was the Tony Hawk remaster, but I don't know. I'm assuming that's coming from Activision. I didn't really see like who was publishing that or developing it, so um, I don't know. I'm sure they'll jump onto that one too. And there's Square Enix that usually has one, and I believe Bethesda said they weren't going to have anything as far as any kind of conference or showcase or anything coming out. So, and I'm not even sure what they have to show off. So, since I think that just yesterday or the other day they said that there's no Elder Scrolls news for a long time now. So, I think their next big game is probably Starfield that's going to come out. So we'll have to see.
So I apologize for being obsessed, but I did forget. It's Rise and Fall: Civilizations at War. It was actually published by Midway, and it came out in 2006 on PC.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, this is I could remember the cover and the box art because this was back when you actually had boxes. So yeah, there was all like a bunch of the hero characters were on the front, and then an army was framed below. But yeah, you would command armies, but then you could zoom in and play as like Cleopatra or like a Roman legionnaire commander or something like that.
Okay.
See.
Cool.
And the Tony Hawk remaster is being published by Activision.
Okay.
The announcement is on their blog.
Okay. Yeah, that was another Twitter quick news hit that I saw the other day. So it looks cool. I mean, I'll probably most likely get it. That's the remastering 1 and 2, I believe, right? Yeah. So, and if I remember seeing correctly, they're having all the original music, which that's probably a pretty big deal because a lot of times you don't get the original music on remastered games like that. I know, well, at least those older games like that. So I think that's pretty cool. So I think that is it for the news that we had planned. Anything else that you guys want to go over real quick? Nothing? All right. So next show is our GX show, hosted by Mr. Agasicles Stamas with myself and Swiss again. Maybe DB will show up on that one. Who knows? Maybe he'll have the time to get in there. We'll go over our PickZ PlayZ, which we're going over our coach co-op games. Obviously, a lot of games back in the day had couch co-op. Excuse me. So we're trying to play a game that has couch co-op, or at least maybe has some kind of online functionality. We could do that too. I've got a few games that I've actually been playing lately, which I've actually already mentioned during our GX shows. But we'll see. Maybe I might throw something else into the mix there to spice it up a little. Looks like Swiss, you have Streets of Rage 4 on the agenda.
Yep, that game just came out a couple of weeks ago, so a rare near to launch pickup for me. But yeah, we've already had one session, and I will talk more about it next week.
Nice.
It's the old school like Streets of Rage 3 literally came out in like 1996 or 95 or something like that. So this is very old school.
Yeah, proper sequel.
So this is not. I'm vastly confused. So DBQ talked about a Streets of Rage, like the modern remake, right, or the modern new game. I guess he said that it was a proper sequel, and then it turns out that game is also on Game Pass. So I actually downloaded it today. Is this a completely different game, or is this the same game?
No, yeah, this should be the same game as far as I know.
This one's Streets of Rage 4, so I don't know.
Is that the one you
It's not
downloaded?
yeah, it's not a. Or you're asking a Gus,
Oh, I'm
please?
sorry, I was asking the Agasicles. Was it Streets of Rage 4 you downloaded? Agasicles?
Yeah, it's whatever. The new game that just recently came out, Streets of Rage, that is now available
Yeah.
on Game Pass.
Yeah, so that'd be 4, yeah.
Game Pass.
Yeah, I think it actually came. I know it came out to Switch last week. I think it was delayed
Yeah,
maybe a
that's
little
the
bit.
one. Yeah, it is on Game Pass. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if that's PC also though or not. So I know for sure on the console. Yeah, because I saw.
It is.
Join Xbox Game Pass for console and PC.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's what I downloaded on. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so yeah, and it's apparent. Like, I guess it's a. I mean, it's a sequel. It's supposedly set 10 years after the events of Streets of Rage 3. So if you add that cliffhanger 25 years ago, you can finally reconnect with, I don't know the characters' names, but
So like Axel and something. I think I remember. I don't know. It's been a while since I played any of those ones. Yeah, so we'll find out. We'll find out how Switch or how Swiss, excuse me, how Swiss gets going on that game there. Yeah, like I said, I'm not sure what I'm gonna play yet. Although now that I know that's Streets of Rage, or I was reminded that Streets of Rage 4 is on Xbox Game Pass. That might be another good one. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, gentlemen, I think that is it for tonight. Thank you, Mr. Agasicles, SwissGuard, for joining me tonight. Check us out next week, once again, for our GX show. And as always, be safe and have fun playing your games. We'll catch you next time.